I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're diving into the enigmatic realms with Chris Reynolds, author of an amazing book. It's called Lost Secrets of the Ancient Ones, Book 1, The Manna Chronicles. This gripping novel takes readers on a thrilling journey through history, merging science, mystery, and the ancient prophecies. Join us right now as we explore the profound secrets that have puzzled the likes of Plato, Newton, and Hawking. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. Chris, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. Thank you for having me.
Tell me what inspired you to weave historical figures and scientific theories into the fabric of your novel.
So, as a kid, always fascinated with the pyramids, the hundreds of different stories of why they were built, who built them, for what reason. And as I got older, that expanded to interest in alternative histories. How old really is the Earth? And then when I got into my teens, I was going through my spiritual quest and went through the Bible, the Quran, the Rosicrucians, and everything seemed to be somehow linked in my mind. I just couldn't quite figure out what the links were. So I finally decided, after 200 books of research, to start a series. So the first book, Lost Secret of the Ancient Ones, actually took me 7 years to write. The subsequent one took a year, and I'm finishing up the third book right now. But it really just had to do with a passion for a lot of alternative history, conspiracy theories, shadow governments.
And then weaving it all together into a narrative where it all made sense. You could explore these topics, put out proposed answers to the questions and so forth, right?
Correct. So just to give you the first chapter, because it kind of sets the whole trilogy, the story is of a quantum physicist who has discovered an ancient secret. He's been kidnapped by a global cabal, and he's handcuffed aboard their jet at 35,000 feet. He stands up, looks his captor in the eye, never in fear of any kind, and says, "Victor, are you a God-fearing man?" And at that point in time, he simply vanishes. So whereas this would be a literary device, I am going to set out over the next 3 books to show you that this is actually not a literary device. This is feasible and possible, right up to the latest Stephen Hawking's working on the specific mechanics of this.
Wonderful. Well, that is an exciting setup, an exciting premise. I can see why this book is such a page turner. Tell us a little bit about the Philosopher's Stone and the eclipse of 2017 and how they play pivotal roles in your story.
Well, the Philosopher's Stone is always the enigmatic hunt of alchemists, and it's been interpreted as turning lead into gold. That is about wealth and material being. But really, the Philosopher's Stone is about creating what I refer to in the book as manna, which Moses spread manna amongst his people, which Hawkins and other scientists at the Argonne National Laboratory refer to orbitally rearranged molecules. And what it is, it's a powder that, for instance, what Hawkins did is he put a weight on an atomic scale, and as he added powder to the weight diminished until it was less than 0 and the item was no longer there. He brushed his hand across the scale, and suddenly the item materialized. So in my book, which there's stories of the patriarch Enoch, who was the grandfather who was just lifted up to heaven, came back and told Noah to build the ark because the rain was coming, which, by the way, the Bible has 7 individuals who leave the dimension and return without dying. So that, again, was one of those. And then the Sir William Flinders Petrie, who discovered Tutankhamun's tomb, a famous archaeologist. He went up onto Mount Shabbat, which is where he believes that Moses got the Ten Commandments in Sinai. And what he found was he found a laboratory that had been vacated for 1,500 years. And in that laboratory was over a ton of a white powdery substance that he could never identify. Mm-hmm. Subsequently, once the museums got involved, that powder has all disappeared. Non-conforming archaeologists believe this is where Akhenaten, the last of the pharaohs that was Tutankhamun's father, made the sacred manna, which allowed the Egyptian royalty to visit what is called the plains of Ayaru, which is an alternative dimension. This is all spelled out in story form in my book. I don't want it to appear that it's too laborious or...
No, that's the beauty of your book. You've created a great vehicle to explore, very diverse topics. And I actually think it'd be an interesting vehicle for a TV series as well, where...
Yeah, I would hope. My daughter worked on, she helped launch HBO Max. So she lives in New York. And I've always thought that they did such a great job with Game of Thrones, The Sopranos, that given a choice of if I should ever be so blessed, HBO, or I guess it's now called Max, would be the proper vehicle because they understand storytelling, they spend the money, they're looking for long-term content as opposed to instant gratification.
Right. And almost like an unsolved mysteries kind of thing. Like I think Robert Stack used to host that years ago, but this would be more in a narrative form because you've novelized it. I think it'd be wonderful. Tell me, was there one revelation during your research that you really were like wowed by?
I'm going to go back a little in my life. When I was in my teens, I answered an advertisement in like Archaeology magazine. So the fact that I was in my teens subscribing to Archaeology magazine probably says something about my past. But it was join the Rosicrucians and see the real world. So I joined. They're based out of San Francisco. And you sign a pledge you'll never share the materials they send you. But for years, I would get monthly pamphlets and basically meditate in front of a candle to awaken your third eye. Now, this book deals extensively with remote viewing, which again is a government sanctioned idea that the human spirit can leave their physical body, gain knowledge, retain information, basically psychic spying, and then come back and deliver it. A perfect example of how that was used, and again, this is outlined in my book, and remote viewing is very instrumental to the second half of the book, where just to set up in the second chapter, Maya Harrington, who's the main character, she's kind of like a Laura Croft. She just got her PhD in archaeology. She's set on trying to get a job as an archaeologist when somebody delivers her father's diary that lets her know he's missing. And subsequently, the next day, one of the richest men in the world offers her a job to find the Garden of Eden. Well, she's an atheist, but she's willing to take him on if she can use his resources. Little did she know that searching for the Garden of Eden and searching her father would be converging paths. But going back to remote viewing for a second, back in the 70s, there was a KGB offspring called the Red Brigade in Italy, and they kidnapped a NATO general, General Dozier. And remote viewing was in its infancy in the military, what they called psychic warriors. So they brought in their two best remote viewers to go find this general. And spiritually, they followed his aura around the world, found the country, Italy, the city, Padua, the street, and described the building. And that afternoon, NATO raided and retrieved him and saved him. And so, of course, that really sparked interest in psychic warriors. A conspiracy theory never proven, but It's in the book, and I like conspiracy theories because just because it's a conspiracy theory doesn't mean it's not true.
Absolutely.
Is that Russia was way ahead of America in psychic spies. Not only were the West trying to play catch up, but they were learning that psychic spies could whisper, I mean, that's a term, into the ear of others to do things that they couldn't do, the World Bank, things like that. So they had built 11 psi bases. And for whatever reason, they took a lot of energy and they all surrounded Chernobyl. And when Chernobyl, the accident, happened, all 11 of the psi bases were closed and the West was in a catch-up game. So, again, that's a conspiracy. I've read lots of people who have written it, but, we'll leave it in the conspiracy file for now.
Like you said, just because it's a conspiracy or labeled as a conspiracy theory doesn't mean that it's not true. Fascinating stuff. This book is jam-packed with fascinating stuff. Chris Reynolds has written a powerful book. It is called Lost Secret of the Ancient Ones, Book 1, The Manna Chronicles. This is Book 1, as we mentioned. Book 2 is done. Chris, did you say?
Yeah, book 2, actually book 1 and book 2 are at Amazon right now. So book 2 is called Ghost Gold. So in book 1, Maya Harrington, looking for her father, is being monitored by what I call the hidden hand. That's the global cabal. And as she comes to realize how high up they are, how much of the world that they control, she starts to know she has to battle them before she can find her father. And the diary he's left her is full of clues and ciphers, and some of them she can uncode early on, some of them she has to uncode later. She goes to South America and meets with a South American ayahuasca priest. He opens up her mind to, again, she's a scientist.
Yeah.
And of course, so Ghost Gold is out. She's more, the second book is she's now mastered her talent at remote viewing. She now knows who the enemy is. She is coming to learn that fate and destiny are real, and that she has a destiny that is set before the beginning of time to help mankind with a coming crisis. And that would segue to your question about the eclipse.
Yeah.
So we had an eclipse in 2017. It crossed from the Pacific Northwest to the American Southeast. We have another eclipse happening on April 8th in a month, which will run from Maine to San Diego. Well, first, eclipses don't cross the same landmass more than once every 400 years. So this is an anomaly. Another thing that's an anomaly is this particular eclipse crosses 9 different cities. The one on April 8th crosses 9 different cities named Nineveh. So if you recall the story of Jonah and the whale in the Bible, he was sent to the city of Nineveh, which is in Iraq, to tell the people to repent or there would be crisis. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to go. He didn't believe he was the right guy. But if God wants you, he gets you. So he was swallowed up by a whale, and the whale deposited him there. So I took this 7-year history of the 2 crossings of, the eclipses, which, by the way, the exact crossing point is at Egypt, Missouri. Another fun fact that I found. I set that as the 7 years of, basically, if you read End Times, where the world's going to come to an end and we're going to end up in Armageddon and the forces of good and evil, there's a 7-year period before, and then there is a quiet period where people need to reflect on the signs and wonders of the heavens, and if they don't, then technically all hell will break loose. Yeah. So that is what the 3 prophecies that are in there, the 2 eclipses be told. And for me, the third and final book is in Revelation and the Quran. There will be some event that pulls all of humanity together to rally behind one man, which, as we know how distraught the world is today with strife and politics and everything else, it would have to be some incredible event for that to happen outwardly. So what I have chosen is that the whole UFO phenomenon that seems to be getting more and more spotlight these days
Mhm.
is not about interstellar beings. It's about interdimensional beings, more or less demonic beings that are finding their way into our physical plane, preparing for Satan's army.
Wow.
Yeah,
Very,
and
very powerful
just
stuff.
one other thing I want to
Sure.
mention. I'm sorry to interrupt, but one other thing I just want to mention on demons, right? And again, I'm a writer,
Yeah.
so allow me some literary latitude.
Sure.
Everybody knows the story of Noah. It's Gilgamesh, Noah. It's in the Hindu text, the Ayurveda. It's, hundreds and hundreds. All the ancient, the American Indians, they also all have a flood myth.
Mhm.
And the core of the flood myth is God was mad. So he took two of each animal and a group of people. He flooded the world and killed everything else, all the animals and all the people, and started afresh. So that's the story. But here's what is in some of the books of Enoch and some of the older texts that never made it into the Bible. When Adam and Eve were kicked out of the dimensional plane of Eden into the hard physical world, God created a cast of angels called Watchers, 200 Watchers. They were on Mount Harmon. Their job was to keep an eye on Adam and Eve, help them grow, and protect them from Satan, who had an axe to grind. Satan corrupted these angels. And in Genesis it says, and the sons of God slept with the daughters of men, and they gave birth to the Nephilim, the offspring of the gods of old. So what the Nephilim are, they were a race of giants born of angelic and human birth, who ruled the earth. And the angels were not satisfied with their carnal lust just with humans. They ended up sleeping with a lot of animals and everything else, and completely polluting the gene pool of man and beast. So God flooded the earth because those two animals of each were the two that still had pure genes. When he killed everything, because the angelic side of the Nephilim were spirit, they couldn't die. And that's where all of the demons of modern times have come. They are the Nephilim that lost their physical bodies, and they have been dying forever, or not dying, trying to get back into the physical plane.
Amazing stuff. I
So,
got to hold you there, Chris. We're out of time.
okay.
Thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight. And as you can tell, Chris's books are riveting. That was just a small sample. The links are below this interview.